stimulating thoughts that Richard raised a while ago, and I back to 2012 when coming back from the Virgin Islands on my assignment with the Captain Morgan Rum Company, I was asked by the board of Red Stripe to try to deliver a transformative project that would move the business and bring about an innovation in brewing in Jamaica. Never before done in the Western Hemisphere to have cassava in the grist of beer. And people said it couldn't be done. In fact, they tried it in Ghana and Africa, other parts of Africa, it did not work. And so the discussion was, I looked around and I saw 200,000 acres of prime agricultural land being derated for housing, same observations we're making now, and thought, what if we were to take a policy approach and talk to the government about putting that back into production for cassava. When you look at the yields, it was something like 14 tons per hectare. And what it took was to benchmark the technology going to Colombia and Brazil, and to bring the technology here and to articulate building a supply chain. 2 years later, we were able to put a starch factory, put it in the grist, and the rest is history. So sometimes it takes a disruptive effort and a bit of crazy thinking, but I believe it can be done, and hats off to you, Richard, and the rest of the team at CEPRAD, prodding on to do that. Again, before I continue into my presentation, I couldn't help but, as the Chief Environmental Officer for the UDC, make note that there are some of us who engage in disturbing or endangered animals. And so I'd encourage you not to trouble the turtles at all, for whatever reason, right? And no, but serious. On Saturday, we had International Coastal Cleanup Day at Mouth Beach in Helshaw, and thanks to the persons that came out, we had about 2,000 students from various high schools, university, nurses, people in the community, and I'm sure we went past that 2,000 pounds of garbage that was picked up. My team alone did at least 200 pounds, which included a big fridge, right? What is a fridge doing on a beach? And when you think about the turtles, the crocodiles, the iguanas, the birds, people who want to go to the beach and look at the amount of garbage, not just styrofoams and plastics, needles, slippers, bumpers, you name it. And where is it coming from? It's coming from our homes. It's coming from our homes. And a lot of that transformation to make paradise sustainable and to cause us to hand to our children a better future starts with us. So again, I'd like to underscore the point that Richard made in relation to behaviors adjusting to match with policy that the government is undertaking. So today I'm here to have a talk about engineering the future through celebrating our heritage. And for those of you who are not aware, the Urban Development Corporation was created by statute in 1968 through a special act of parliament to ensure that planned orderly development takes place when and where it is needed in Jamaica within the framework of the national priorities. So we are the government's principal planning authority and agency, and the government gives policy directives in relation to what sort of development needs to happen, and they say to us, UDC, work by yourself or work with other government agencies to make it happen. So you would recall, for example, the Prime Minister articulated the need for a third city. Why do we need a third city? That's an engineering problem, right? When you're thinking about the development of a country and where it will be within the next 25 to 50 years. How do you manage population distribution and the sort of economic development that is to happen? It doesn't happen in a vacuum. And that's a conversation. To build a city, it takes at least 15 to 25 years. It's a conversation that starts now. And that's something that, for example, we have started working on. The same thing in relation to the government campus and centralizing the government and building the parliament, as well as other transformations that we've been asked to undertake. Our vision is to become, Jamaica is to become the 4th logistics hub with 3 modern cities whose residents and visitors have easy access to adequate green spaces, public beaches, and eco-attractions, all made possible by numerous development processes led by the UDC that has delivered record profits above market returns for private partners and real estate trust for the people of Jamaica. Who doesn't want a future like that? Right? Everybody wants it. And it's our vision to cut across time and space to deliver it for the country. So our mission is to fulfill our roles as the nation's main urban development agency and facilitator by effectively and efficiently assigning and managing our resources to ensure the economic viability of the corporation, sustainable national development, and best quality of life for the citizens of Jamaica. And that now brings us to defining the problem. So, as Richard pointed out earlier on in his discussion on manufacturing, there is a multiplicity of problems in Jamaica. And as the government's lead urban development agency, or lead development agency, we cannot take on all of them. So today I'm here to talk about one problem that we have, which I will attempt to narrowly define and then go through our thoughts on solving this problem. Port Royal, since its inception, was seen as one of the most important cities in the world. Indeed, in the 16th century, when it was first started, people saw it as the center for navigation within the Western Hemisphere. And by the 17th century, it was in its heyday. Then came 11 o'clock, 1692, June 11. And a seismic event took place, liquefaction occurred, and the city sank. So that whole experience went away. Jamaica's place as being a prime navigation port has not moved. It just means that since that time till now, we have not been able to reposition that cultural significance as well as how we re-establish ourselves as that central navigation port. So the problem that we have defined here is twofold. One, on the cultural value that Port Royal places in relation to its heritage, what it was and what it still means because of its state of preservation, and the latent assets that are present in the artifacts and relics and people that are there. And then secondly, how do we then translate that latent experience of being a central navigatable port in the Western Hemisphere to the economy of Jamaica? It belongs to one of the select groups of archaeological sites, which include Pompeii, the Herculaneum in Italy, Ozet in the state of Washington. And these sites have unique catastrophic sites created by some disaster that preserves the cultural features and materials that are all important in an archaeological context. Port Royal is strikingly different. After 37 years of its existence, this bustling city literally sank into the harbor in only a matter of minutes. As a matter of fact, it's quantified to be in about 2.5 minutes that the entire city sank. Right? It was 51 acres, the original city, and it sank. Right? In 2.5 minutes. And this is what it looks like underground. an entire floor, and this is in 60 feet of water. Here you see the foundations for some of the walls. Here you see foundations for the port, for a fort. So, given the constraints for the development as a result of both the heritage and the environmental value, Port Royal in Jamaica, and the international community, it is important that as faithful stewards for the public's trust, a robust evaluation of all aspects of the development is undertaken. So when asked by the Prime Minister, which we were, to bring about an orderly development of Port Royal, again having defined both the cultural issue and the translation of the navigable port and bringing that to a national logistics context, we recognize the need to distill them both in a structured way. So what is our approach to engineering the Port Royal vision? The UDC has been charged to complete the development plan for Port Royal and the Palisados. And the vision is to facilitate sustainable investments in heritage attractions, natural environment, where the town of Port Royal and its residents can become a viable heritage cultural town. Right? So again, that deals with preserving for posterity that which was and continues to be a living relic. So how have we looked at approaching it? It combines a number of disciplines. Of course, engineering, architecture, urban and regional planning, and project management. And so what are the objectives? In having defined the problem, our objective is to ensure that the plan provides for an upgrade in the infrastructure, public amenities, housing, and the generation of greater economic activity given the sensitivity of the environment. Not a lot of people recognize that Port Royal, though it is about 7,000 acres, has only about 70 or so that is habitable. Right? The original town being 51 acres, but perhaps only about 20 of that is currently occupied because the rest of it is on Heritage Trust sites. And so when you're talking about infrastructure upgrade for the 2,000 or so residents that live in the area, being in a culturally sensitive site where there's archaeological remains below, as you scratch the surface, what sort of infrastructure do you implement in that area? And that is what excites me. This is where our engineers and architects have to really become creative in looking at what sort of technology do we bring to this development as we try to preserve as well as enhance what is there, so that people still recognize it as being the Port Royal that was, is, and continues to be a relic. Also, attention has to be given to the potential areas for entertainment, a port of call, and a comprehensive look at the mobility options for the area, subject to the carrying capacities. So obviously, with limited land space, we can't all just migrate 2.7 million people over into Port Royal. It will not happen. Right? You don't have enough land space to hold more than maybe 6,000 people on any given day without just knocking into people, just a capacity. You can't stand one on top of the next. It's seismically sensitive. It's a sandbar, which is a spit, and you can't put massive structures over there. Otherwise, you will destroy the cultural heritage that's there. So those are some of the contexts within which the design problem is to happen. So our plan, to aid the process, we've prepared a draft Port Royal and Palisados development area plan called our Sustainable Port Royal Plan, an executive land use summary, and an accompanying land use plan. And then this planning is not happening in a vacuum. As the persons charged to lead it, we carry out the research, we work with other agencies and we carry out public consultations. So for example, our public consultation began in 2010 when we published our development plan for Kingston and downtown Kingston and Port Royal. It's available on our website and it's a part of the gazetted order for the development of downtown Kingston and Port Royal. This is also captured in the Town and Country Planning Act in the Gazette for Kingston and the Petro Keys. So when asked, how do I get involved in the development process, you have to pay attention to where the information is. Through the gazetting, through the town halls, through the consultation meetings, through just even contacting NEPA and the NRCPA, the KSAMC or the UDC to find out how you can have a voice if you are not aware. So what are some of the guiding principles to heritage planning? It was designated as a heritage site in 1999 by the JNHT, the Jamaica National Heritage Trust. It has UNESCO World Heritage designation and is under consideration for an appointment. It must have UNESCO operational guidelines. It must have a town management plan. So apart from the infrastructure being put in place, the town management plan must include, for example, elements of how the infrastructure will be maintained, what sort of manufacturing will be there, what sort of recreational, hospitality and tourism will be there to support a cultural town. Preservation schemes that will guide the development. So in 10 years or 25 years, if somebody wants to come and start to put cubic buildings, is that going to be permitted? Will that preserve the cultural heritage? And the preservation schemes are meant to define what can and cannot be done as the city evolves and continues to be a relic. We also have to do environmental planning. Part of the remit is to ensure that there's the development of the environmental side of what is Port Royal. So it involves the Port Royal Area Protected Act 1998, Wildlife Protection Act 1945, Town and Country Planning Authority Act, Endangered Species Act of 2000, the Beach Control Act of 1956, the Watershed Protection Act, Wetlands Information International Importance 2005 under the Ramsar Convention, the Palisados Port Royal Protected Area Management Plan 2015 to 2020 by NEPA, and the Draft Palisados Port Royal Protected Area Zoning Plan 2014 and 19 by NEPA. These are all in important contexts to preserve the environment of Port Royal, ensuring that whatever infrastructural changes or social activities that happen in the space, it protects the environment. It's sexy when you think back of the series of movies that were made on Port Royal, Pirates of the Caribbean, and they talk about Hangman's Point, when they show where they used to hang the pirates that would have come into the territory and they wanted to make an example. That area is still there, but that part of it is sexy in the movies, but the reality is it is a fish sanctuary. When you go over there now, the same problem that we observed in Telsha, it's there fivefold. You have to wade through at least 2 or 3 feet of garbage. So part of the context in carrying out the development in this area is to look now at how do we connect the development of Port Royal to the wider government policy of, yes, not just stopping at looking imposition of bans, but cleaning up the harbour. And what engineering and other technology do we bring to ensure that we continue to preserve that? Things such as excavators, conveyors that will pull garbage out of the water, dredging the area to ensure that the PCBs and the toxins that come from the breakdown of garbage doesn't impact negatively the fish sanctuary that is there. And it's important also in terms of the productive side, because from a manufacturing standpoint, what we want to see is a resurgence of fishing, because there's a healthy fishing village in Port Royal, which will not only support the hospitality and tourism that will come to the development, but also help to feed the rest of Kingston in the 7th largest natural harbour. So that's the guiding context. And here we have the sunken city that I was discussing. The area in red are some of the sites that we've clearly identified for immediate development. This area here is the Morgan Harbour lands. This area is the area being considered for the new floating pier. This is the naval dockyard and connecting to a number of other important relic sites. And the area in yellow is the area that is considered under designation. The wider Port Royal context that for protection happens to be not just Port Royal itself, but Lime and Maiden Key and the other keys that are in the area of Port Royal, going all the way past the airport down to Harbour View. So that's the entire area boundary to ensure that we preserve and protect it. So how will we engineer the development process? First of all, we will prepare a draft master plan. We'll review the previous plans, carry out site reconnaissance, stakeholder engagement and feedback, strategic environmental assessment of the plan, and carrying capacity assessment. So having defined the problem, we know the area that we're going to look at. We look at the broader policy context for the government, the underlying and preceding statutes for protection, and of course have dialogue with the people who live there, the people who are going to carry out the entrusted town management plan. We also need to carry out specific environmental impact assessment and then finalize the submission. So we have a series of consultations, town hall meetings, stakeholder group meetings with the various persons in that area that include people like JNHD, the Housing Trust, the KCMC, the Brotherhood, the CBOs within the community, the Member of Parliament, the Port Authority, the business persons within the community, the schools, the police station, the fire brigade, all persons that will be impacted will be a part of the consultative process. And here's our proposed land use. The area in turquoise is institutional, the commercial is in pink, the orange is historical, housing expansion is in yellow, and public recreational space is in green. And why do I mention that? Part of our Vision 2030 is that in every town that is occupied by Jamaicans, there is sufficient green space to ensure not just the combat of anti-social behavior, but the promotion of positive social behavior. And I want to underscore that point by saying it's not just green space on land, but the beaches as well, right? And so part of the context of the development looks at not just how many more hotels, how many more rooms for Airbnb, how many more glorias and restaurants we can put in the space, how many more fishing village areas we can put in the space, but also how the people will live. And that is what brings about the authenticity of cultural heritage tourism. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So these are our anchor developments. Port Rocky, which is the gateway to Port Royal. and the Naval Hospital, Dockyard, Lime Street, and a number of other areas there. But we have an issue to address, which is squatting. It's a huge problem. The government has articulated its policy decision, which is to ensure that affordable housing is provided. So as part of our solution, we've looked at the land use and identified where in the town the housing should be based on the seismic sensitivity and how we can increase the densification to address the housing needs of persons that are there towards the carrying capacity of the town. Now surely, everybody may want to live in Port Royal, but it is not necessarily going to be practical. And I hearken you to think of places like, other islands like Cayman or let's take in Boston off the coast of Massachusetts. Those islands where the Inuit Indians used to live, people accept the carrying capacity is only 2,000, so we're not going to build more than 2,000 houses. And seasonally we won't take more than 10,000 visitors on a day. That's just how it is. And you manage around that plan because you have sewage to treat, you have people to entertain, and you want to maximize the experience. And it's a conversation that we've not had as a country in the last 50 years in how we talk about development planning. Because we're used to people just going and building in an area, capturing it, and then saying, regulate me, give me these services. So in addressing that issue, we're bringing about an orderly development for Port Royal. Okay, so this is the development order area. So once we've completed the consultation, and this is just a draft, this is what will constitute the development order. The development order is what then allows us the authority to go in with the other agencies to put in the infrastructure, put in the housing, and ensure that the plan is in place. And this is what the final footprint will look like. We have town upgrades, which will include water supply, central sewage, roadworks, telecoms, public greenways, transportation. And lastly, I'd like to close with our compelling story. We told you about our vision and mission before, but I want to paint for you our compelling story, which places us in 2031. In 2031, the UDC will celebrate 62 years of transformational urban development in Jamaica by having a grand gala celebration in Kingston waterfront that hosts 500,000 patrons from festival, marketplace, all the way to the iconic Music Museum and the Palisados Promenade and the newly built Henry Morgan Park in Port Royal. That's what we were talking about earlier on. This celebration is being televised pay-per-view to the Jamaican diaspora and is also connected to the celebrations in the other 2 cities. Remember I told you we're building 3 cities in Jamaica, right? And so in Freedom Park in Montego Bay, it's hosting 300,000 patrons consisting of locals and tourists that stretch from the Montego Pier along a new promenade, past the iconic Monument Trail, and going all the way to Dead End Park. In the newly built 3rd city, the Mayor, Governor General, and Prime Minister are cutting the ribbon in the brand new civic center called Technology Park. 3rd city is meant to be a smart city, and the first smart city in Caribbean. The third city celebrations are being hosted with 200,000 patrons, with locals and visitors who arrive in the city via a multimodal transport to experience the social and cultural building spaces using the LEED principles in a city which is a leading center for high technology in the hemisphere. Jamaica has become the 4th logistics hub with numerous urban development program interventions led by the UDC, which has transformed the economy to one of the strongest in the region towards developed nation status. The Urban Development Corporation has created 12 new green spaces in addition to Emancipation Park, Freedom Park, Technology Park in each town that provides social and cultural interaction for the ratio of 1 park per capita. There are also 33 more public beaches and 6 eco-lodges with surrounding ecology habitat attractions. Our attractions are well sought after by domestic and international tourists, providing rich Jamaican cultural heritage and ecology, providing best-in-class destination experience in leisure entertainment, customer service, and gastronomy. Over the 12 years, the UDC's transformational program delivery, we have consistently delivered record profits year on year, giving above market return for the PPPs and REITs, and our team of highly competent technicians and administrative support are well sought after, and the UDC has been asked to carry out development consultancy throughout other countries in Latin America and the Caribbean to help them develop their cities and their quality of life. We would have truly delivered on our mandate to lead economical, ecological, social, and cultural development in the region. That is our approach to addressing the re-engineering of Port Royal and achieving our compelling story and an ambitious vision for 2030. Thank you.
I know we are pressed for time, but is there any burning question that you might want to ask? We'll take 1 and 2 at this time. And then after, during the break, we can always meet up with them.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for that presentation, Dr. Graham. I guess I'm just curious, because I've never dealt with any of these sensitive sites in terms of heritage. And it was pretty interesting when they said if you just scratch the surface, you find out these valuable kind of artifacts and such. And it reminded me of a project that they did over in Turkey, the Bosphorus Tunnel or Eurasia Tunnel.
Yes.
And I remember when they were doing the tunnel boring machines or digging the shaft, they actually encountered a burial site. And that stopped work for a good bit of time for all the archaeologists to then come in, properly extract all of these artifacts and such. And I see all the acts that you have to follow in terms of developing Port Royal. I'm curious as to the level of the survey in terms of the archaeological survey for the whole of Port Royal.
Yes.
Because I saw the plan, they had the different zones and such. Were those zones guided by an archaeological survey, or is it that will come in afterwards?
No, absolutely, good question. These zones are guided by an archaeological survey. The JNHT would have on their record since Port Royal's inception various maps of where the buildings would have been and even reports subsequently that they used to create place locations. And so the buildings and artifacts are ranked in various levels. For example, a level 1 would be a site that is in known preservation and cannot have any type of disturbance to the foundations or the building itself. Level 2 might be, well, you can build around it, but you need to preserve where the foundations are so people can see it and it can be further studied. A level 3 may be collection of whatever item is there, because over time Port Royal has about 3 different developments that happened subsequent to the 1692 earthquake. And so that is also there. So there are about 4 different levels of archaeological preservation that we are guided by, and they provide the outline. So as part of the designation, we know where the areas are, and you're absolutely correct. If we are in an area that previously was one that we thought we could go straight ahead and just go into, and we encounter any artifact, even if it's just a piece of 8, a coin, the JNHT person is right there beside the bucket as it's digging up, and we have to stop to just ensure that we check again. Of course, technology is better now, so there's seismic survey that is employed using radioscope to assess what is below. But absolutely, that's a process, and the type of persons that we intend to bring into the development, apart from the government agencies that will put in the infrastructure, need to have experience and appreciate that sensitivity as we look to carry out the commercialization of the space to drive the economic development that is to come from the cultural experience. Thanks. You're welcome.
Okay. This is a minor point after, well, following him. I suppose you could use ground penetrating radar to
Absolutely.
search.
Absolutely.
But my question is this. The first part of the Palisades from Harborview to, I'd say somewhere about Gunboat Beach, right? Would it be possible, since it's not very, well, it's not the, I know it's in a protected area, but if you look at the other parts of it, which are, like say, heritage sites and so on, and wetlands, could you put a couple wind turbines here?
Absolutely. It's something worth looking at. What renewable technologies could be put, whether it is tidal, wind, or solar, and it's absolutely within the scope for further study. It's not a part of our current implementation plan because we're using the current policy framework and what is available. But you're absolutely right. It is possible to look at renewable energy outside of what government has right now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Douglas Brown from
Wine Douglas.
What's the expected completion time for the development? And have you considered, or the UDC, have you considered the impact of climate change on the whole area, especially now that we're expected to have more intense storm, sea level rise times, beach,
Yeah. We currently have in the draft plan a 4-year implementation timeline, and we need to do perhaps 40% of that heavy lifting within the first 2 years because the port is up on us and to be put in next year. So we're going to be facing it over 4 years. The estimated build out is about $4.26 billion. And the government has to allocate the funds for the various projects to carry out the development. In respect to climate change, the government is articulating a beaches policy, which also contemplates coastal protection. You would have seen what has happened in the protection of the Palisades spit with the rocks that were put, the ground protection that was put there. And we anticipate to still do some of that work, especially to limit the extent of liquefaction that can occur through seismic activity, as well as sea tides that can come from hurricane or rough water. In our planning, we anticipate and have accommodated some of the sways and areas for water to pass through the town because it's a natural phenomenon like that. Lastly.
Good morning.
Is it possible to just take that question during the break, please? I know we all won't benefit, but what do you suggest? We are running a little late.
She's already. Let's just take her and that's it. Then I'll stand. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I'm part of the Water Project Jamaica.
Okay.
Sponsored by Jane Foundation, and I just wanted to ask if your planning included greywater harvesting and rainwater harvesting.
At this point in time, not at a detail level, but it does include looking at lead approaches to the sustainable execution of the development plan. Thank you.